highway. She's living in a world and it's on fire. Feel like a catastrophe, but she knows she can fly away. She's got both feet on the ground and she's not burning down. Oh, she's got her head in the clouds and she's not backing down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire.
Good afternoon and welcome to United We's Appointments Project. My name is Wendy Doyle and I'm honored to serve as the President and CEO of United We, which stands for United Women's Empowerment. The United We singers that you just heard, and for those who are just joining us, you'll get to hear at the end of the session as well. They gathered for that performance and performed that song without ever meeting one another and just gathered in the room and performed for the very first time. So we hope that is kind of a theme for today's session and for our time together that you take away to really learn about a unique opportunity of how to engage in the city of Oklahoma City and utilize your voice for the good of everyone. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started here. So please mute your microphones during the presentation. Also, in an effort to further get to know one another, please drop your name, the organization that you're with, in the chat box. And then finally, at the end of the session, we will be opening it up for questions. But if you think of a question throughout the presentation, feel comfortable in dropping your question into the chat. For today's presentation, we have distinguished guests joining us, and I would like to introduce them to you. We have Raul Font, who is the president of the Latino Community Development Center. We have Steve Hill, Chief of Staff, Office of the Mayor, City of Oklahoma City. Michelle Martinez, who is an Appointments Project appointee, and Robert Glinski, who is with the United We team and serves as the National Appointments Project Director. Let us begin by first hearing from Raul Font with the Latino Community Development Center. Raul, take it away.
Hey, good morning, and I want to thank the United We Project and the City of Oklahoma City for giving us this opportunity to contribute to the inclusiveness of Oklahoma City. We are a 501c3 organization. You see our mission right in front of us. The part today that we are going to work on and focus on would be leadership. We all know that in 1920, the women got the right to vote, and still here a century later, we are still struggling to hear the voices of our minorities and specifically our women of color. So we are excited to be part of this project, and I encourage every one of the participants, you have an opportunity to contribute to the well-being of the city of Oklahoma City. So this is your chance.
Raul, thank you for your tremendous leadership, support, and all of the awareness that you have generated for today's event. We're so grateful.
Thank you.
A little bit of background before we jump in about who is United We hosting this event today. And at our very central core, our objective is to really lift up women. We work for change to advance all women's economic and civic leadership and have been doing this for 31 years. It's a tremendous team effort, and it takes partners, including the Latino Community Development Center and the City of Oklahoma City. We work to unite people around economic development issues in a nonpartisan manner to empower women and their families. Our priorities have ranged from paid family and medical leave to childcare and occupational licensing reform, just to name a few. We invest in evidence-based research really work to identify unique, innovative solutions, and then get to work. Bottom line, women's experiences and voices must help shape our communities and public policy agendas and solutions, but ultimately drive systemic change. Representation matters, which is why you are here today to learn more about the Appointments Project. Just some background, this is really a true example of research solutions results. The Appointments Project really was a result of an evidence-based research study that we invested in. It was something that came out of that research study and that we piloted 8 years ago and has now grown significantly. To tell us more about this, I will turn it to my colleague, Robert Glinski, our National Appointments Project Director. Robert?
Thank you, Wendy, and it's great to be with all of you today and share what's going on with the Appointments Project, specifically in Oklahoma City. I wanted to just continue to follow up on the research aspect of our organization because it does really set the basis of how the Appointments Project started. And the very first study was actually done in the University of Kansas. We commissioned them to ask women specifically about their attitudes about civic engagement and try to find out why women are serving and why they were not. And what we found in 2014 still holds true somewhat today. The women in this study actually shared that they felt they were not confident in the knowledge and expertise that was needed to serve on a board and commission. An interesting thing too is the women said they would like to serve, but they were not being asked. They also want to make sure that their time was going to be used very efficiently. And last but not least, they wanted to get encouragement and support from both men and women to take that next step. So after the Appointments Project was out there for about 5 years, we decided to go back and do some additional research really on the benefits of more women serving and bringing gender diversity to public boards and commissions. And the University of Missouri found out some real benefits in why more women should serve. First of all, the survey or the research actually pointed to the fact that with more women serving, it actually increases public trust in government. Second, it boosts efficiency, which I always thought was interesting because that was pointed out in the first research 5 years previously. And then last but not least, and probably the most important thing is that it improves the lives of the community residents, all of them, especially the women's in the family. So again, we built the Appointments Project off of this research. And so what we're going to share with you today is research-based and really does give you a good sense of the landscape that's out there. On the next slide here, you'll see that I just want to kind of share this because we're often asked about nationwide elected office. What is the percentage of women serving in these roles? Now, again, this is elected office. We're going to talk more about appointed local positions, but this gives you a really good idea of the gender parity or gender equity that's in the elected positions. Right now, about 25% of the mayors are women. State legislatures, women represent about 31% of the legislatures. And last but not least, U.S. Congress, about 27% are women. And when this data comes from the American Women in Politics group out of Rutgers University. It's up to date, a great resource. So the progress is actually being made. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to women of color, the progress has not been at the same accelerated rate that we all would like to see. Right now, out of the 535 positions in Congress, both the House and the Senate, only 50 of those are served by women. So we show this really just to give a national glimpse of the elected office. But on the next slide, you'll see that we're really talking about today's civic leadership. And we really just like to level set about what is civic leadership. Civic leadership, as we define it, is really government and public appointments. The appointments that are made at the local level, in this case, Oklahoma City, and what we can do to try to increase more women to participate at the local level on boards and commissions. As a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, we do like to stress that United We is very supportive of all the efforts that go into getting more women on corporate boards, private boards, and nonprofit boards. But today we're really talking about volunteered positions where they are appointed by the actual cities. And these are some very important decisions these boards and commissions make that really help make the city run and really make it run more efficiently and really set it up for a strong future. So we're talking about civic leadership when we talk about the appointments project, and we're very happy to report today that we have facilitated over 180 appointments in both states, counties, and cities. We have, like many of the cities we work with, a specific focus on women of color. Raul talked to this earlier today. But right now, in a recent look at our database of our registrants, we have about 37% women of color in our registrants database that are members of the Appointments Project. We've actually helped roughly about 16% of those in securing an appointment. So it's been a focus of ours. It continues to be a focus of ours, and I know it's a focus also in Oklahoma City. But that shows the impact we've had to date. What we're going to talk about today, though, is really a very simple steps. And number one, and I'm going to get into far more detail with this a little bit more in the presentation. But the first thing we're going to go through is the process of how to get registered. We first asked you to register with the Appointments Project. Then we're actually going to look at Oklahoma City's boards and commissions web pages to look at the application, to look at the actual steps you need to do to apply. We'll tell you how to stay connected with United We and the Appointments Project and how we can help you. And last but not least, we love to celebrate. So we're going to get more into that detail. But right now, I'd like to introduce Michelle Martinez. Michelle has agreed to join us today. She's going to share a little bit about her story, but she's also going to stay on for the Q&A. And we encourage you, if you have any questions for Michelle, to put them into the chat. We can definitely address them in the Q&A. We're fortunate to have Michelle connected to our organization and the Appointments Project. She's the Assistant General Counsel at Kiewit. For those of you who do not know, Kiewit is a powerhouse construction, engineering, and mining company. Very, very successful company. She earned her doctorate of law at the University of Missouri in Columbia School of Law. And she's been engaged with the Appointments Project for some time. And she's currently appointed and serves on the Kansas City, Missouri Land Bank. So Michelle, we're going to turn it over to you to tell your story. And we look forward to hearing more about that, but then also you participating in the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert, for the introduction. And
Sure.
Thanks for having me here today. I was going to say good afternoon. I think maybe there's a time difference. For me, it's officially afternoon. So good afternoon to all of you. Thrilled to virtually meet you all and share my experience with the Appointments Project. So my involvement with United We actually began in late 2014 after I first moved to Kansas City after graduating law school to begin my career as a construction and real estate attorney. I grew up in St. Louis across the state, but I love the city. I love the unique fountains. I love everything about it, everything it had to offer. One of the things that I struggled with, though, was finding ways to get involved in the community in both civic and philanthropic ways, both in law school and prior to that in college. I was always involved in extracurricular activities and in my community. And I wanted to continue that as an official adult. But as a new resident, I didn't really know where to begin with my search. So fortunately for me, within a few months of being at my former job, I was approached by a colleague about getting involved with the Women's Foundation, which is now known as United We. And he particularly thought I would be a great candidate for the Appointments Project that they were launching. So I did a little research, loved what the organization stood for and fought for. So I submitted my resume. And then within a few weeks after that, I was approached by the Appointments Project, and they recommended that I apply for the Land Bank Board of Kansas City through the mayor's office. So I went online through the mayor's website and sent my application. And then within a few weeks after that, I was appointed to serve as a commissioner for the Land Bank Board. So probably a couple months time, super easy, super painless. And I was appointed to a 3-year term with the Kansas City Land Bank Board. I was then offered and ultimately accepted another 3-year term. So 6 years, and then through COVID, appointments kind of got put to the side. I ended up serving another year without getting reappointed. But I ultimately just finished my tenure in December. And really the only reason I finished my tenure there is because I actually just moved outside the Kansas City limits. So I'm working with the appointments project again to hopefully get reappointed to another commissioner board within my new county, Platte County in Missouri. But overall, my experience serving as a commissioner has been invaluable. I've learned so much about myself as a leader, but also about the inner workings of the city and how various organizations and boards work together to really drive change in our community. The board that I was involved in is responsible for managing property that has been foreclosed on or left vacant. So our goal really was to revitalize our neighborhoods, enhance economic development. And those are things I'm very passionate for. And even better in that I got to use my experience as a construction and real estate attorney to really add value to our meetings. It is a great opportunity to get involved with the appointments project. I think had I not been approached with this opportunity, I would have never known that a regular citizen can be involved in a board or commission. I really thought it was a political process, and it's not at all. And I've been so thankful for United We to give me constant opportunities to get involved in the community. And I really encourage you all to get involved. There are so many intelligent, diverse, motivated women in all of our communities. We really need to be at the decision-making table. And this is a great avenue to do that. So with that said, I'm proud of the United We work that they're constantly driving for change. And I'm glad the appointments project is expanding to other cities, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have towards the end of the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and that's a very inspirational, and you've been very successful. I'm sure Kansas City, Missouri is not happy that you moved to Platte County, but I bet Platte County's jumping up and down to get you.
Yeah, I'm excited to get involved.
Good. Well, we got you on the list because we got connections in there too. So I want to just say to everyone, Michelle will stay around. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. We can talk about how to get involved in your specific area. But today, the rest of the presentation is really about inviting you to apply and to a board or commission of your interest in Oklahoma City. We believe you're ready. We believe you're also qualified, and we want you to register with us. So today, look at this webinar as the actual invitation to get involved. And if you know of anyone else that would be interested in getting involved, please share with them what we're sharing today. But also we have another webinar coming up in Oklahoma City on May 24th. So there'll be another opportunity to share this information with other women. But as I said earlier, the very first step actually is to register with the Appointments Project. And it's a very simple process. And I'll share some valid reasons why you'd want to actually get connected to the Appointments Project. But first, let me talk about the actual application. It's very simple. It's done online. It's submitted online. It's three simple areas, actually. It's the work in your professional background. We'd like to know about your areas of interest, your boards and commissions you might be interested in, and then specific skills or experiences you might have. We ask you to attach a resume because if a city official does approach us for a specific opening or vacancy, they always typically ask for a vacancy. So, a resume. So please attach your most current resume. Some other advantages with being connected to the Appointments Project once you register with us is we can keep you up to date on the work that Wendy referred to earlier. And that is the efforts that we constantly take to remove barriers in front of women when it comes to success on the economic and civic leadership areas. Just this morning, we partnered with the Oklahoma State University and shared the status of women in Oklahoma City. So, or excuse me, not Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Sorry, Steve, didn't give you a panic attack there, but in Oklahoma. So if you have questions about that, we can address that. But some of the other benefits you will receive when you actually join the Appointments Project is you will get a candidate toolkit. The candidate toolkit is actually pretty much what we're covering today. It's frequently asked questions. We outline the process, and we also share a little bit about some of the current facts and history. It's a great overview also for you to evaluate what some of your skills and areas of interest might be. Also, when you join the Appointments Project, we have a number of webinars, training sessions, roundtables on very current topics that you will be included in and invited to. We also have the ability to get our various different members connected into the Wall Street Journal's women's events. So there's a lot of pluses with joining the Appointments Project, and we hope that you do that. The next step after joining the Appointments Project is actually looking at boards and commissions in Oklahoma City. And the next step is for you to apply. I will tell you that Oklahoma City makes it very simple because it's one-stop shopping. You can go to this one page. It's links off of this one page that specifically can get you to the application or get you to other information. But basically, this page right here gives you a description of all the boards and commissions that are available. The links can take you to a more descriptive profile. It also has meeting notes. It will also share with you some of the current members who are on that board, which are good to know in case you want to learn more about serving on a board. You can ask those specific members to do that. It also has the link specifically to the boards and commissions application. So great place to start. We then encourage you after you visit this very detailed one-stop shop of boards and commissions to actually apply. And this is, I will tell you, we see a lot of applications. This is a very simple, again, application can be submitted online. You will need to include your background information. They're going to ask you specifically what ward you belong to in Oklahoma City. They'll ask about your profession or your occupation, your areas of interest, and also if you've served on any other boards and commissions before. They're also going to ask you a little bit about your experiences professionally and how your professional experiences or life experiences might be a great fit for a board or commission appointment. And last but not least, they're going to ask for a current resume. So make sure you have your resume up to date. The one thing I will tell you also about Oklahoma City's application is at the end of the year, you will need to reapply. They ask for everyone to re-up their application at the beginning of each year. So if you apply and you're not appointed right out of the gate, remember that at the end of the year, you're probably going to have to reapply and attach another current resume. So as we see, as I said, Oklahoma City's made it very simple. It's easy to do once you know exactly what your interests and where boards or commissions you'd like to serve on. Steve will be part of our Q&A afterwards. If you have specific questions, we can definitely address those. On the next slide here, we talk about staying connected. We're here for all of our members to help. Not only do we provide you the toolkit, we also want to be here if you have any questions or need specific answers regarding your application and or your submission to a board or commission. We also we hear quite often that the toolkit actually prompts discussions with many of your friends and mentors and find out what their input is and find out what they think you might be really good at when it comes to serving in Oklahoma City. Last but not least, we think it's real important too that you know that you might have to pivot. Some of the vacancies typically determine a lot of when the openings will take place, obviously. So it's really important to really take a thorough review of your areas of interest, because you might find out that something you might be interested in on boards and commission, such as a arts commission, might be full for a period of time. So maybe you pivot over to something like Parks and Recs, if that's another area you'd like to get into. In the Appointments Project, on our team, we advocate for all women in the Appointments Project. We are nonpartisan and nonprofit. We do not make the actual selections, but we'll take whatever steps we can to help facilitate the appointments. So we're here to do that, but just keep in mind that the appointment is actually typically done by the mayor, sometimes voted on by the city council. sometimes a city staffer. So it's various different ways that it gets done, but we're here to help you is the bottom line. Last but not least, we said earlier, we love to celebrate. And we do this through any appointment that we are made aware of. We will put it out on our social channels. We will put it out on our website. One of the reasons we do this is because the research actually points to the fact women want to see other women who have been successful, learn from their story and their successes. So we really push this out so women know that that there are women being appointed, but also they might be a good resource for someone to reach out to get information if you would like to take the next step into getting appointed. Again, we ask you to also help us spread the word. Gender parity on these boards and commissions across the U.S. is not where it needs to be, and that's why the Appointments Project is now expanding across the U.S. Just in summary, I would like to just share a little bit about what appointees have shared with us once they serve. They see it, as Michelle has already indicated, as a true leadership opportunity. They tend to grow both professionally and on their career, on their professional side. It also, we've heard quite a bit about the ability to expand the network and to broaden people's connections and relationship that can also help with leadership and also career development. Bottom line, though, it really does make a measurable impact in your community and beyond. And that's the other thing we'd like to close with is what are the community benefits that we have learned through the Appointments Project, but also the research that points out. When women serve, we know based on the research that it improves the decision-making. It increases bipartisanship. We also have learned that women legislators tend to focus on things that are a little bit closer to their heart or stuff that they might understand a little bit more than maybe some of the men that might sit on a board or commission. So for example, we know that women are going to gravitate much more to equal pay issues. They're also going to gravitate more to family leave issues. So these are great things of why women need to be at the table. And last but not least, the diversity improves the public trust, which really gets to the bottom line of the Appointments Project. Boards and commissions truly need to reflect the communities that they serve. And to do that, we have to have the best representation of the city there, which includes, in our case, we believe more women at the decision-making table. We've asked you to stay connected. I hope that you will stay connected to us. We can help you in various different ways. You can register and follow with us and get the full benefits of being in our network, but also see all the activities that we do on the policy side. At this time, we'd like to start, though, with the Q&A. And I'm going to kick it over to Wendy here real quick, and we can start off with some just general questions, but please put them into the chat. The next part of our webinar is truly to help address any questions that you might have about the application process, or even questions for Michelle if you want to know how she got involved. So Wendy?
Thank you, Robert, for that great overview. And we welcome Steve Hill, the Chief of Staff of the City of Oklahoma City, into the conversation to answer some questions. And Steve, I think we have a first question for you. Any specific geographic boundaries for application for a board or a commission appointment?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, we'd like the person to live in Oklahoma City. There are a couple instances where city residency is not required, but it's just a couple. For the most part, you need to live in Oklahoma City. Some of the boards and commissions are ward specific, and those tend to, the nominations tend to come to the mayor's office from that council person. So, again, that's a smaller number of appointments. Most are at large and appointed by the mayor, but some actually come to us from the council members and are ward specific.
And then, Steve, a follow-up question. If someone is interested in perhaps a couple of boards, is it okay for them to submit for 2 different appointments?
Yeah, absolutely. We appoint about, I think, 700 people to boards and commissions. Some of them are sexier than others. A lot of people want to serve on the MAPS boards, or they want to be on the Arts Commission, or they want to be on, boards that have an appeal like that. There's 100 boards that are, you saw maybe the first one that Robert showed on the screen. I think it was like police, fire alarm type boards, commissions. those sometimes, you drag people kicking and screaming and beg them to serve on them. But yeah, if you have interest in multiple levels, I'd actually encourage you to go beyond just one or two. I mean, list 3, 4, or 5. That makes it easier for us as we're going through these applications to place, to find someone in a position where they want to go. Nothing worse than having someone appointed and they get there and they're like, this is not what I want to do at all. This is, it's either boring or it's so far outside of my interest area that it's not really pleasant or productive for anybody involved. So yeah, list as many areas of interest as you have. I think, Robert, on our website, I think there's actually a field that you can click that says that you heard this through the Appointments Project or United We.
No, that's correct.
Yeah, so I'll by all means point that, because we flagged those specifically to look at. So anyway, short answer, long. Yeah, give us as many opportunities and options as you feel comfortable with, and then make sure you mark that you're applying through this program.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and Steve, thank you for that. I totally forgot that you guys had set that up. So please feel free to go through that too. So thanks for that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in a chat, send me a personal message. We've got a couple of other ones who've come in, and this is going to be a two-parter. So we're going to have both Steve and Michelle weigh in on this. But the first one is really, is there any previous experience I must have? And a question we always get, I'm going to add to this, is do I need to know the parliamentary rules, like Robert's rules and all of those meeting guidelines? So Steve, why don't you start there? And then Michelle, if you want to give your experiences on serving on a board for so long, that would be great.
Yeah, so part one of that question, there are some boards that have professional requirements, like the position requires the person to be, say, an architect. And that's not the majority of the appointments, but it's some of them. So yeah, in some cases there would be a professional knowledge base required. As far as the parliamentary stuff, yeah, you need to know that, but you can pick that. We usually onboard people. There's typically training for new appointees. And that stuff's pretty easy to pick up pretty quickly.
Michelle, what are your thoughts and experiences with regards to some of knowing the parliamentary rules, or did you have to have a lot of experience when you started on your board?
Yeah, from my experience, I went in completely green. I was not only new to Kansas City, I was new to law, I was new to everything. So by no means did I need to have any prior experience to really do my job as a commissioner, but our own board did have its own set of policies and rules that I had to learn at the time. But it wasn't anything that would be unique to any profession. It was just a matter of jumping in, reading the book, and learning its policies, which tend to be tied to some laws, but it's really simplified. In our case, it was just a binder where we got at the start of our commission and go from there. But I think a lot of it is just you learn as you go. You learn from the other commissioners or the other board members that are the leaders in the meetings, and kind of I remember being sort of a sponge and just absorbing as much as possible early on before I really started speaking and kind of engaging more.
Great. Thank you for that. Steve, we got a specific question about if someone works in Oklahoma City, but does not live in Oklahoma City, can they apply or can they serve on a board?
Again, it would all go back to, there's a residency requirement on some positions. So if that position requires residency in Oklahoma City, it wouldn't matter if you worked here, you'd have to live here. And if there is no residency requirement, then it's a moot point, right?
Okay. And Brenda, and by the way, a lot of that information can be found on those two websites, two web pages we showed earlier today. It's really a lot of good information there.
Robert, could I jump in?
Please. Sure, please.
I want to respond to something Michelle said, which I think her experience going onto a board, I think is very, that's what people typically go through. That you get to the board, you kind of look around, you get a feel for the lay of the land, you figure out, who's doing what, and it comes pretty quickly to you. In Oklahoma City, the boards they have a staff person that staffs all the boards. And that person would be and I'm sure for Michelle, it was like an invaluable resource, right? You can go to that staff person and say, I'm not sure about this. I don't know what this means. And they're more than happy to help you out. Everyone that serves on that board or commission was new to boards or commissions at some point. They may look very polished and they may know all the Robert's Rules of Order and the intricacies of working a committee, but at some point they were there for the first time too. So you should not be intimidated at all about this, other than it is a time commitment and then there is typically some work involved. But other than that, I think it's a real rewarding experience for people who get involved in them.
That's great, Steve. Thanks for sharing that. And kind of along that same line is we had a question from Brenda. Is it possible to speak with someone to obtain more information about a specific board and the time commitment involved?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can. I'll put my email address in the chat here, but yeah, you can contact me and I'll be happy to, if I know the answer, which a lot of times I might, I'll share what the commitment is and all that. If I don't, I can connect you with the staff person on that board or commission, and they're more than happy to help you with those questions.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And kind of along that line too, I received a question regarding time commitment just overall. Michelle, I'd love to get your take on this. This question comes up quite a bit, like how much time, and I know each board has their own time commitments. So what has your experience been as it pertains to your busy life and the time commitment that's needed to serve on a board?
Sure. So like you've mentioned, it's very board specific in terms of time commitment, but for me, it was very minimal and hardly disruptive to my work life. It was about 1 or 2 times a month for about a couple hours at a time. Ours fell on Monday mornings. So usually I would receive a package of applications that we were going to review about a week prior. And that would take me an hour or two, depending on the workload, to review in advance, and then actually having the meeting for a couple hours. And then every once in a while, we would have sort of like a planning session, which would be like a half day or so, but is very interactive and it feels like it goes fast. I will say that when I first started serving as a commissioner, I was in private practice, which was billable hours, long hours, and high stress environment. And I was still able to get away from the office and work as a commissioner or volunteer as a commissioner on Monday mornings. My boss was gracious enough to let me do that. And then we moved to virtual, which made it even easier to kind of, jump in for a couple hours rather than making the drive back and forth. But it's highly dependent on the board. I recommend looking and getting that information from the website to see. I know some meet once a week, some meet once a month, some meet quarterly. So definitely look into that and confirm with your work before you apply.
Great. And Michelle, one other question kind of from your perspective is you addressed the fact that you learned professionally, leadership skills and personally. Just it'd be great if you maybe shared a little bit more on that. We have a little bit of time for that. This question comes up a lot, like what do you really get out of it? So other than serving on the city and making the city a better place, share us a couple of your other insights.
Sure. So I think one of the key takeaways was addressed in one of your slides, but definitely growing your professional network. And I have connections like that. I'm friends on Facebook and LinkedIn, and either people that just became friends just through coming to the meetings every day, who weren't even board members, but they would come, or staff members of the city. I think that's always valuable to have friends in unique environments, especially me as a lawyer. I don't really expand a lot of to different professions. So it's always great to have people that do different things than me, which I think is great to be diverse in all ways. In terms of leadership, for me, it has helped one with feeling comfortable with my opinion and sharing it and knowing that my voice adds value to a meeting. I think at first I was very hesitant to do that for fear of being wrong or for fear of sounding stupid. And you quickly realize, and I think this probably just had to do with me growing up as just a professional period, but no one really knows what they're doing. Like everyone is just kind of, we're all in the same place. We're all faking it till we're making it. So I think your voice does add value, even if it's a question. Those are the best conversations. Those are the best dialogues is, the ones that come from a question of someone being confused by something, because most likely if you're confused, someone else is too. So learning that skill has really helped me both in my personal and professional life. And that is one of the main things I've taken away from my last 7+ years of serving.
That's great. Steve, and thank you for that, Michelle. We appreciate that. Steve has put his information, his email. So if you do have questions specifically or want to know more specifically about a board or commission, he's provided that information. And thank you for doing that, Steve. Another logistical kind of board and commission question, Steve, is about conflicts of interest. Got a question about if I'm in a situation where it conflicts with my professional life or my business, how does that handle on a board or commission?
So yeah, the city clerk will send out forms asking if you have any conflicts that we should be aware of. But when you're actually in a meeting and an actual conflict comes up, what typically happens is the commissioner or person on the board or trust just simply recuses themselves for that vote. So it's a parliamentary procedure that's pretty easily remedied. I mean, if you work for a company that say, that company is part of the discussion on that board or commission, and that, you don't have an unbiased opinion on it, you just simply recuse yourself from the vote, and life goes on, and we move on to the next topic. So it's nothing to be overly concerned about. If you're in a position, if you work for a company that's directly involved with a particular board, and you know that it's going to be nothing but conflicts, that's probably not the board for you to get onto. But conflicts arise, and like I said, they're easily dealt with in the parliamentary procedure of the board or commission.
Great. Another question, Steve, that we recently received, but also I think pertains a lot to Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, and that's around possibly green cards or DACA recipients. And I was curious what the application process, or for someone who might qualify in that category, what's the best approach?
Just apply. Where any legal resident is able to apply for a board or commission, so that would include anyone with a green card. Those of you that follow Mayor Holt on social media are no doubt aware that diversity is a big deal for us, and so we work hard at it, and we've made significant strides in the makeup of our boards and commissions as a result of that hard work. And so we're not about constructing barriers to stop that. We want eligible and interested parties to be able to serve in their community, and we welcome all voices.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. And again, I want to thank Michelle and Steve for putting their email addresses in there. They're here to help. If you have questions, please, I encourage you to do that. I said earlier today that we actually were very excited to release some data that we partnered with the Oklahoma State University. And Wendy, I didn't know if you wanted to call out a couple of the key highlights on the status of women in Oklahoma.
Yes, happy to share. So earlier this morning, we released the Status of Women in Oklahoma research study, as Robert said, with Oklahoma State University. And it is our intent and commitment to the state of Oklahoma. And how we will be using this information is certainly looking at what are some policy barriers that may be holding women back economically, and what role that United We can play to help reduce those, to make it, more equitable, whether it be in the workplace or entrepreneurship. We are, as to underscore again, a nonpartisan organization, and we will be using this research study as a tool to certainly create conversation with policymakers. As it pertains to the civic engagement indicator that was highlighted in the research study, Oklahoma really excels at women getting out and voting. And so, to celebrate that piece. Where we'd like to see a little bit more movement is, better representation of women in the state capitol, to certainly advocate for policies that are impacting women and their families economically. We really saw, between the 2016-2020 election period, that women in the state capitol, had a little bit of acceleration and then fell backwards. So if there's, a key takeaway here, not only to serve at the city level on a board or a commission, but if a good woman who is, could be a great elected official, encourage her to apply. So again, to underscore the message of representation matters, it certainly applies not only here at the board and commission level, city, county, state, but certainly in the elected official space as well. So just wanted to bring that back to our conversation here today. Thanks, Robert.
Sure, Wendy, and thank you. And if you're interested in more detail about the status of women in Oklahoma, the research release that we did earlier today, Rachel has put it on the chat. So encourage you. If you have any questions, reach out to us. I also, if you have any last questions, shoot them into the chat or raise your hand. We can do that. But I do want to just say how much we appreciate the partnership we've had with Raul. So Raul, thank you so much getting the word out. You run a great organization there. So thank you for all of that. We look forward to our next event with you, a webinar on May 24th.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And Steve, you've always been there for our webinars. We love it. We're so excited to be expanding our again into Oklahoma City. So thank you so much, Steve. And again, Steve put his information in the chat if you want to correspond directly with him. Michelle, I call you one of our celebrity appointees because you tell such a great story, and you're iconic around here and in the work you've done. And I think it's very inspirational. So with that, we're going to close. I just want to thank everyone again for participating. We're going to show a little bit more of a video, and then that will pop up will be a survey on the actual oh, wait, I think we got a question coming in here. Brenda says, we absolutely recommend, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. It's Rachel responding back to that. But we do recommend any information you can glean from others that are involved with Steve or Michelle. We encourage you to do that. The more information you have about the application process and potential vacancies, the better and stronger candidate you will become. So we do encourage that quite a bit.
Hey, Robert, if I could answer Brenda's question directly.
Sure.
So in Oklahoma City, the emails are easy for the council members. It's like ward1@okc.gov, ward2@okc.gov. And so reaching out to them, I'd drop them an email first and say, hi, my name is X. I'm interested in serving on a board or commission, or working in the community in this manner or that manner. So I think Brenda knows that, and I think she was asking for everybody else. So I appreciate the question.
That's awesome. Thank you for answering that and floating that up, Brenda. But we're going to close. I want to again thank everyone for your interest in participating with the Appointments Project, and particularly as we're trying to drive more women to apply in Oklahoma City. We're going to show a little video, and please take your time to few seconds to answer a few questions we have. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.